Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld Podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. 24 hours late this week. Sorry about that. America. Despite the fact we have no Americans on tonight.
Yes, the two non-Americans of the show.
Yeah. This week, of course, we'll be discussing the Acolyte Season 1, Episode 6, Teach/Corrupt. So much to get into this week. It's going to be a great show. First, though, introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, from the Raeside, it's Hannah Raeside.
G'day there. Great to be back. And I feel so cocky that I'm the last man standing of being here today. But no, it's going to be an interesting show because, historically, Dom, we usually have opposing views when it comes to some sort of a critical episode of a story. We often have totally different views. Example, the Benny and the Soup episode of Bad Batch Season 2. You love, I don't love at all.
All of Andor is also
Andor. The bird scene, the bird episode,
the
dinosaur thing of Mandalorian Season 3. Oh, iconic. So very interested into what we're going to get into today.
I think regardless of how we actually feel about this episode, we should just take opposing views. And then halfway through the episode, we'll just switch. So for the first half of the episode, I'm going to hate it. I'm going to hate Teach Corrupt. I'm just going to hate it. I'm going to say it's the worst thing ever. And you're going to love it. Like it's the best thing since Empire Strikes Back. And then when we reach about an hour into the show, we'll just flip sides.
We'll just flip. Yeah.
And we'll just say, hey, I actually loved it. And you'll say you hated it. And that'll basically be the show from here on out.
That'll work.
Yeah. But yeah, Penn and Chris are not here this week. They got a little too caught up in their 4th of July celebrations. And I don't know, did something with fireworks and created all sorts of
fine. They're safe.
They're safe. They're safe. Nobody's in the ICU.
Injured.
Yeah, don't worry. They just celebrated America a little too hard. But we'll hear from at least one of them in a sort of fashion later on in the show. There is a fake Ben in the chat urging on a fight in the show in his place. So
fight. Yeah, we sure.
Yeah.
We have so many fights lined up. Me and Dom, we're gonna fight in a parking lot in an IHOP,
in Japan.
Yeah, we have so many. There's so many to plan.
It's gonna be good. All right. Before we dive too deeply into the episode, of course, want to remind you, as always, to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Punch the subscribe button. And if you're listening on a platform that lets you leave a review. We really appreciate those. If you're listening live, you can super chat with us. That's a way to guarantee your question will be included in Ask the SWU later in the show. And if you want to support the show financially between episodes, you can become a channel member, which is just sort of like a tip jar. We don't have anything set up. I know other channels have things that you get. If you become a channel member on, say, the Raeside, you get things. Stuff happens. Whereas here, you're just say, hey, I like the show. Maybe we should. It's a tip jar. Yeah, tip jar. Or maybe we should change that at some point. I don't know. You can also join the Discord. Lots of great discussion goes on in there. Things like movie nights and game nights. I know people were playing Star Wars Hunters together in there. So lots of fun happening there. And of course, check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including The Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and eventually more. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about The Acolyte, Season 1, Episode 6, Teach/Corrupt, written by Leslie Headland and Jocelyn Bio, and directed by Hanel Culpepper. Hannah, we're going to throw it to you first. What did you think? I mean, who else were we going to throw it to?
Yeah.
We're going to throw it to you first. What did you think of Episode 6?
Yes, absolutely. Well, righto. Let's get into it. Oh boy. This episode I have so many thoughts on. I mean, on the surface, off the top, fantastic lore. We delve into some great information here. We're getting some background, some more mysterious kind of fact drops by the characters of what their different pasts will be. We're one step closer to finding out Sol's big dark secret. We're finding more.
I don't think we're ever going to find out at this point.
I don't think so. I think we're just going to keep getting closer. I never know.
Every week there's a moment where he's like, I will tell you the truth. Just give me like 5 minutes, and then something huge happens and we can't actually see it.
Third episode in a row that has happened. So yes, I'm with you. Maybe we won't ever get it. But then we get some great information about the stranger, Manny. What do we call him? Quimir? I don't know what to call him.
I don't know what to call him anymore.
All of the above. We get some background info on him and some really interesting character moments of him being this dark side user, which I really enjoyed. I think it was after the fact when I was really pondering on this episode, had to rewatch, had a thought about what it really meant for these characters, where I really, really enjoyed the direction and the creation of this Quimir character and what they're doing with him. I think that is the highlight for me of this episode. A few moments to just highlight on, and I think we'll get to those. But we got a fantastic, deathly duo of Basil and Pip, which is a formidable opponent. There you go. That's the team up of the century right there. I love that he's becoming the literal mystery solver of this show. He is carrying the figuring out the Sith really at this point. So amazing. But yes, some really fantastic talking points. I do have some thoughts on perhaps the structure and writing and format of this episode, but we'll get into that. But off the top, cool info.
Yeah, I'm starting to get worried about my buddy Basil, because I have a feeling, this episode lays the groundwork for how characters will not know about the Sith going forward. And I'm real worried about Sol, and I was feeling real worried about Sol and what might happen to him. And then it occurred to me that Basil is also on that ship with only him and May, and I'm like, May's not gonna leave just the Badger alive. I have a feeling if Sol is going down, I feel like Basil's going with him, and I don't want that. But I'm worried about that. I really enjoyed this episode overall. I'll be honest, this was sort of the episode I needed, because I was feeling a little bit down on the Acolyte going into this episode. The fourth episode, so 2 weeks back, really was like a shaky, not great episode for me, and it left me feeling like a little uncertain about if the show could recover from that. And then you get episode 5, which is that big action set piece, and that was really, really cool. And it's like, okay, they can do this part of the show really well. I like that they can do this part of the show, but can they do the more plot heavy, move the characters around story moments, which they'd shown in the first 3 episodes they could do pretty well, but then 4 was just such a missed opportunity and miscue that I was feeling a little bit worried about the show. And it doesn't help that airing at the same time as The Acolyte is House of the Dragon, which is another show that I love, and has been just like 3 weeks of like near 10 out of 10 episodes. And I came away from the 3rd episode of that show going like, why can't Star Wars be this good? Why can't we have a Star Wars show that is this good? And I understand it is comparing apples to oranges, and it's not really a fair comparison. But then this episode comes along and it gets things back on track when it comes to the characters, when it comes to the themes, when it comes to like the overarching story of the show. They showed, like I said, they showed last week they can really do the action right. The Jackie and your deaths were true surprises. And then this week they kind of like showed that they can pay that off or start to pay that off in interesting ways by putting May with Soul, which of the plot lines is maybe, I think, the least effective, but also putting Osha with the Stranger, which I think led to some of the best scenes in the series so far. Some of the best talking scenes, at least, in the series so far. So strong episode, I think, gets us back on track. I think sets us on a good trajectory for the last 2 weeks, but not perfect either. So we'll get into that. We'll get into why. I think we'll start with the Osha, Khmer, Stranger, Manny storyline, whatever we're gonna call this, because this, we pick up right where we left off last week. The Stranger has taken Osha to this planet, and it's very Luke and Rey in Last Jedi. It's like
100%,
right down to the location. It has you thinking, is that Act 2? Is that the same place? Are we back in Space Ireland? But no, apparently somewhere else. It's unknown planet, which I have weirdly had a lot of problems with Star Wars on Disney Plus with their title cards. And this just falls right into that. That's what a stupid ass title card. Unknown planet. We know it's unknown. Otherwise, we know what it was.
That's true.
I thought that was dumb, but that's irrelevant to the storyline. What did you think, Hannah, of where we picked things up with the storyline between these two characters?
Yeah, so I'm of the contextually, I'm a big fan of Arc 2 and the planet of Arc 2, and I love everything that happens on the planet. I want to see more of that. I've always wanted to see more of it. So I was really geared up at, like, when we just got a few of those establishing scenes, kind of panning around the beach and looking at the kind of zooming out from looking at the other islands, and I'm like, this is Arc 2. This is Arc 2. Come on, like, we're here, right? But it was only upon after the episode where, online talk, chatter, live chat as well, doing this discussion show where people mentioned it might not be Arc 2, but it might be Boldemnik. Is that how you say it? Yeah,
it's the Cortosis planet from the Plagueis novel.
Yeah, the balsamic planet. That's what
balsamic planet. Yes,
keep calling it. I'm like, that's so much easier.
Yeah,
balsamic planet from Plagueis, which surprisingly I've read but cannot remember at all this planet existing in that book. But which makes all the sense. And I think opens up that can of worms for those big names like Plagueis, Tenebris, to come into this story. They've been on the kind of the back of the minds of a lot of fans going into the show, and as this show's been going on. So I think this is just another worm in the can, for lack of a better term, to talk about are we going to get this kind of more direct connection between these two? But this planet, if it is that, I think that's fantastic, and I think we're set for a very interesting connection to kind of previous storylines of those characters mentioned. So I wish it was Act 2, but this is probably the next best thing. So yeah,
I kind of wish it was Act 2 as well. Like, it would have been kind of interesting, kind of fitting that the place that is the start of the Jedi Order is where a Sith Lord or Sith Apprentice or Sith of any type would go to hide as well, because like it's almost like hiding in the one place they would never think to look, because it's so obvious that you wouldn't go to look there. Like, why would they? Or so it seems so not even obvious, just ridiculous. Like, why would they go to the place where the Jedi are from? That's not where the Sith would hang out. But they've gone they've gone in a different direction, which is fine. I'm sure we'll find out more about this place. But it does kind of, we pick up and we're right back into this storyline, and those parallels, I think, are intentional. This is, a training of some sort. And you had a reluctant teacher in The Last Jedi, and here you have a reluctant student, and you have the two sides sort of trying to win the other one over. And the dynamic is obviously different between Rey and Luke and Osha and Kamir, but there's this similar sort of power imbalance between the two where each of them wants something different and they're trying to convince the other one of that. And I think it's a pretty interesting place to start from. So we start with Osha sort of following Kamir, and she follows him to this little pool of water where he strips down and goes for a little swim. First and foremost, most important question, is this the first scene where somebody's been naked on screen in Star Wars before?
This has been such a contentious point, and I've been trying to rack my mind of like who's been naked in Star Wars, but like insinuated naked. And I'm like, was there like a moment with the Reiko Hardeen arc in Clone Wars where like maybe he's getting changed? I'm like, there's surely some other moment, but perhaps I think this might be the most direct.
Yeah.
Oh, don't pan down kind of moment.
I could think of was Luke in his diaper in the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Although actually, Will of the Force in the live chat says Han was naked in Solo in the showers. There you go. And
God, that's a movie I need
mystery.
to rewatch. There you go.
Solve that mystery. But Kamir obviously testing Osha, leaves the lightsaber out. She picks it up, and he starts sort of taunting her. Are you going to kill me? Could you kill me? Do you think, we are wondering in your mind why, if it's honorable to kill someone when they're unarmed. And he asks the question, what's the difference between killing someone in battle versus killing someone, 24 hours later when they're unarmed? And it begins this back and forth that the two characters have. What did you think, Hannah, of this exchange where about, the honorableness of how Jedi kill versus how they don't kill?
Yeah, I think they've done such a great job in these sequences specifically with characterizing his. You used the word taunting kind of way. I think that's right. A fantastic description of what it is. And to make a broader comment on just how they've characterized Kamir in a general sense to speaking and connecting with Osha, is very Palpatine-esque. It's a very, unarmed, not threatening, very vulnerable in a way, kind of, I have nothing to, I don't want to hurt you. You can trust me. Like that very much energy and this idea of kind of bringing up this challenge of how the morality of the Jedi and how do they kill, and whether they should kill if the opponent has a weapon or not. I think goes in with the theme of what they're trying to achieve with this show is to really question the morality of the Jedi. This show is to set up their downfall in about 75 years from now. They're like corrupt and terrible and everything's out the window. So how did they kind of get to that point? And even though Osha is not a part of the Jedi Order, this is not like a direct thing to that, but it's just presenting us with that concept of the Jedi kind of have lost their super sacred ways that they really tried to hold, but now it's kind of, they will. Most Jedi at this point would kill, I think, in that moment, with an opponent who is unarmed. I mean, look at Sol last episode, ready to kind of swipe down and kill Kamir, but it was Osha that challenged that. So very interesting point to kind of bring up this to challenge how Jedi kill.
Well, it's all about, and I think the comparison you made to Palpatine is really apt, because it's all about, letting the person who you're trying to turn to the dark side think that it's their decision. They have to make all of those decisions on their own. And so it is really interesting to see him just sort of let her be. He's letting her come to these conclusions on her own. He's pushing her to them. He's absolutely trying to unlock something within her. But, he's not torturing her. He's not, it's not something where he's going to torture her to the point where she decides, okay, fine, I'll be evil too. It's sort of like, he's like, let me show you this other path, and let me get you to question everything you've ever thought about the Jedi, about the Republic, about justice, about what's right and wrong and everything like that. And that is basically what Palpatine did with Anakin for 10 years across the prequel trilogy. Even in the, even Revenge of the Sith, good is a point of view. The Jedi, everyone who has power is afraid to lose it. Even the Jedi, he's planting these ideas in Anakin's mind. And here we have Khmer basically asking Osha to think about this. Like, why is it okay to kill someone when you're fighting, but not when they're unarmed? Aren't they the same person? Aren't you seeking out the end goal? There's a sort of famous line from Game of Thrones that the character Tywin Lannister has, where he says, explain to me why it's more noble to kill 10,000 men in battle than a dozen at dinner. And Khmer basically is asking her the same thing. And the answer, I suppose, could be, in battle, everyone is choosing to be there. Everyone is choosing to fight. Whereas if you're, sneaking up on somebody, you're not giving them an opportunity to change their ways, I suppose. Now, Sith Lord like Khmer, probably not going to change his ways, though Anakin did. So it is possible, but he's putting these ideas in her head, and he's trying to get her to unlock ultimately what he thinks she can be. And then they have that scene a little bit later where they're walking along the path, and he's trying to undermine the Jedi. He's talking about soul. He's saying, she's talking about soul. She's saying, soul is very powerful. Soul will come and save me. And he's like, it's not soul's power. It's your power. Do you think we're really going to be seeing? I mean, what do you think of the way in which Osha is now starting to be asked to question the Jedi, obviously leading into, that final moment and what's implied to be happening next week?
Yeah, it's an interesting, I was actually quite hoping it would go this way, where Osha does do this flip.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how they're not doing it as she just got angry one day and now she's going to turn Sith. They're showing the nature of the dark side here. They're showing where that comes up, the seduction of the dark side very well here. And I think this did a fantastic job, where it wasn't that kind of quintessential, no one, cares, I'll just kill everybody in the world. Like it's not that kind of goofy, cartoony kind of way. That it's this very slow manipulation turn of an opinion where Osha's going, where it's like, even by the end of the episode, like we're not like, oh yeah, she's Sith now, or she's evil now. It's she's being convinced otherwise that the Jedi didn't accept her, and I mean, to be fair, we don't even really know what happened with her and the Jedi yet either. But she didn't fit there, and what does that mean for her, and where does that misplaced kind of care and effort go to when you feel betrayed like that? And in the hands of someone like Khmer, that can go very south for Osha. So I like that they're doing this kind of turn on the Jedi, but it seems enticing. If I was Osha, I would be like, okay, you got a good point. They were pretty mean. You're not gonna lie, it's convincing.
Well, yeah, and one thing that Star Wars has always really done with its villains that's interesting is the villains are always the ones that tell the truth, right?
Yes.
Vader says, "I am your father." That's true. Dooku tells Obi-Wan, "What if I were to tell you the Jedi the Republic Senate is now under the control of a Sith Lord?" There we go. I found the line. It was somewhere in there. Somewhere in I had to unlock it in the back drawer of my
under
mind.
The hat somewhere.
That's what's under the hat. It's just a whole bunch of Star Wars quotes. That's what I should do instead of hair. Is just get Star Wars quotes tattooed all over my head.
Just get that tattooed.
That whole one, just around the circumference there. The Jedi are the ones that lie to you, or they twist the truth from a certain point of view, whereas the Sith tell you the truth. And again, we were kind of joking about this but all through this series, It's been like, I'll tell you the truth in a minute. I'll tell you what happened on Brendock in a minute. We'll get there. Saul doesn't want to doesn't actually want to come clean. And it's only at the end of this episode that he's finally like, okay, I'm going to do it. Roll credits. Whereas the Sith tell you the truth. They tell you the truth. Now they're doing it for their own reasons. They're not altruistic in their telling of the truth. But they know that people tell each other these white lies or manipulate the truth from a certain point of view to serve their own minds. And so they cut right through the middle so that you're led to believe the Sith are more trustworthy. That's the thing that's supposed to be appealing. That's what Anakin thinks Palpatine is doing with him constantly. And that's what Chimera is trying to get Osha to see. And, like later on in the episode, he's talking to her about, you think you're losing your connection to the Force. The Jedi tell you that if you don't practice using the Force, your powers diminish. But that's not true. There's another way. Now, that other way is the dark side, and that's not exactly great. He is still manipulating her, but he's telling her the truth. The Jedi's version of events isn't exactly accurate either. They do want people to only use the Force in a certain way, and that's one of those other themes that's kind of been lingering under the surface in this series. But it's all there. It's all building to something, and that payoff is going to come at some point in the next 2 weeks. But what did you think of Chimera's manipulations of Osha?
I mean, to add on to your list of examples where we've seen this before, the one that really struck me with the similarity with in this scene was Maul and Ahsoka in Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was like the same conversation almost, just to really be like, we're both, to kind of show Chimera kind of go, I was rejected too, like I was betrayed as well, and to make himself look super sorry as well, to try and give that relatability to Osha. It's very Maul. Maul did that to us, like being like, I've been cast out as well. I get you, like I know you. It very much reminded me of that scene. And I think this is the most well done part of this episode. Honestly, almost the show for me at this point, is that characterization of Chimera and the scene. I think displays that really well, of that manipulation. I think they've done a really great job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's creepy, but he's endearing. And people have already drawn the Reylo comparison. There's definitely like, whether or not this is a love story or not is irrelevant, but there's definitely, they're taking cues from a love story, because this is a seduction at the end of the day. And whether or not that leads to these two making out at the end of the season, I don't know if that's going to happen.
I wish. I hope. That's the final scene. That's the final scene.
I mean, honestly, that would be, imagine a final scene where the Sith, the Acolyte and the Sith apprentice making out,
just macking on.
Yeah, as the Jedi temple burns behind them.
Oh my god.
But he's drawing her in, and the tension in these scenes, there's a reason why it does feel like they could end with them kissing, because that's how we're used to seeing these sorts of things play out across our media and our storytelling. Speaking of scenes that are quite tense, there is, of course, the scene, she has his lightsaber pretty much the entire episode, and he is challenging her on why she won't use it, why she still thinks of herself as a Jedi despite not being one, and why she isn't part of the Jedi Order anymore, even though across this series it feels like she probably should be and probably could be if she wanted to. What did you think of the reveal of why she isn't still in the Jedi Order, at least from like an emotional truth sort of way, if not, the literal why the moment she walked away from the Order.
Well, I think here's where we tap into, I think, parts that I'm still not quite grasping and understanding. I think overall from the show, I am Osha and May, both of Osha and May are the characters I'm struggling the most to understand in both of their motives. And I think with this scene and conversation, it's a really interesting scene. But the talk of like her and the Jedi, I kind of get, but then also didn't quite get, because like maybe I need it literally spelled out to me, but I don't quite get what, she's okay. She was cast, or she chose to leave, maybe, but it doesn't feel like drastic enough yet. And I think I needed more time with Osha maybe before we got the reveal that she used to be a Jedi, perhaps. It reminded me of the scene of, I think it was episode 4, where Osha and Sol are in the Jedi temple, and he's like, and she's like, oh, I thought you were going to ask me back to the Jedi Order, and he's like, no, just come on the mission. I similar experience with that scene where it's like, I understand what's being presented, but I don't have any connection to it, or like, I'm like, oh, okay, like she wants to go back, okay, like sure. I don't have any, it doesn't have any impact on me. And I think I had a similar feeling in this with that kind of reveal, I guess. Or just conversation about this fact. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, okay, she doesn't want to go back. She wants to go back. I don't. Okay, cool. I didn't really have any reaction to this.
Yeah,
if that's an answer.
No, I think that's fair. And I think to me, again, this speaks to the flaw earlier in the season with in particular the 4th episode. You could spread it across the all of the episodes leading up until this one, is that we haven't spent enough time with May and Osha as young adults here. I feel like I had a fairly decent handle on who they were as children, because we spent that entire episode learning with them. We get like bits and pieces of them in their, in the present, but it never quite amounts to a full picture of who they are, what they want. And this reveal, I think, should have hit extremely hard. This is her, revealing all of her self-doubt, right? This is all the stuff that she's carrying around, is now, she's shouted it out. She's told the world. She's opened up to Kamir in a way that I don't think she's opened up to anybody else, which of course now gives him a weapon to use against her, or to use to turn her to the dark side. Now he knows that the Jedi, for all the Jedi may have done for her, they never really helped her with this problem, with this self-doubt, with this, inability to see herself as being worthy of being a Jedi. He's going to now make her see that she's worthy of being a Sith. So it is like a big, powerful moment. And, he has gotten her to the point, as we see in this one still that we've got on the screen, of where she's now holding the lightsaber to his neck. It's not that much further for her to then cut somebody's head off, right? Like she's almost to the breaking point of going to the dark side. He's gotten her that close. Now he just needs to figure out what it is to push her beyond that. But
I
go ahead.
It is interesting. I do like the little bit of kind of different perspective we get here, because the previous episode we saw Sol in this exact position with Quamir, and Osha being the one to say, hey, don't do that, that's not the Jedi way. But then now, just within the context of everything that's happened, like she's been pushed to this moment already herself. She's at the point of the lightsaber with his neck. So very interesting. It's just how that progresses. This idea of trying to kill someone unarmed is progressing with them.
Well, yeah, and again, it speaks to those sort of to his effectiveness as a manipulator across the first part of this episode, where he's he's successfully sort of poked enough holes in the stories she's been telling herself.
And Jeffy.
Yeah, three holes. That's what Khmer goes for.
That's
1,
all it
2,
needs.
3. Stab, stab, stab. Got him.
That's all you need.
And now, he's now been able to push her to this point, and at the end of the episode, he says, "Now put that helmet on, and see the truth." So, or he says as much that will potentially, push her over the edge. If this is where they're going, much like the Khmer reveal itself, I think it's been kind of clear for a couple of episodes now that the show has been building up to kind of a fake out where we're told May is the dark one, is the acolyte, and Osha's the good one. That they were going to flip sides, or at the very least, Osha was going to be the one to actually go evil, and go dark side, go Sith. And it's been spelled out. So if and when it were to happen in episode 8 or even episode 7 of this season, it won't be a huge reveal, much in the same way that when the stranger took off the helmet and we saw it was Khmer underneath, I think a lot of people had pieced that one together up until that point. So you weren't surprised, but it was still effectively done so that it still felt like a good earned reveal. And this feels like it'll be if next week goes well, that part of the story I think will have been well told and be sort of an earned twist, an earned fake out, an earned red herring with the twins. In terms of the stranger, in terms of Khmer, we do get a few hints about his backstory in this episode. In a couple of those shirtless scenes with him, we see a devastating scar on his back that Osha says looks like he was stabbed in the back, and he says it was from his master, although he won't say if it's his Jedi master. What's going on here? What are we meant to take from this, Hanno?
Yes, indeedy do. Well, I have 2 ongoing theories.
Okay.
I mean, specifically to what is the scar? How did this scar get here? I think that the most popular one I've seen, and I do agree with, and I think would be an interesting story that they present, is we just got introduced that a certain other character has a whip in their arsenal, and and we'll get to this scene, but I have a strong suspicion. Suspicion? I'm both blue. That Vern, if this is all true, Vern was his master, and Vern, whatever happened, we will probably find out what happened. But that is a light whip scar on his back for whatever reason. I think that's probably the strongest one that I'm most confident with. That's what's happened here. You're kind of agreeing that you didn't think of this. Have you not thought of that?
No, I had not thought of that in the slightest.
Oh my God.
I think I was thinking what I thought the sort of the root one basic explanation was that, is that he is not the Sith master. He is the Sith apprentice.
Right.
There is a Sith master out there who at some point turned against him, much in the same way that like Dooku turns against Ventress in the Clone Wars. And now Khmer, wanting vengeance and wanting to take down the Sith master, is now seeking out an acolyte, because he's never says apprentice. He says he wants a student, an acolyte. Never says apprentice. It's almost like he thinks of himself as the apprentice, and he has to find his acolyte who they can then take down the master together, and then he can become the master. The acolyte can become the apprentice, and they can continue on the rule of 2. And I bought into the theory that David Harewood is the one rumored cast member for the acolyte that we haven't seen yet. That like I bought into the theory that when all this is done, he will be revealed in kind of the final moments of the last episodes as the Sith master. He's a great actor, carries a lot of gravitas, could be a great Sith master, and that will tee up a second season in which Osha and Khmer work to take down the Sith Master. Because I think if we get a season 2, I don't think we're dealing with many Jedi anymore. I think the Jedi storyline is wrapped up in the next 2 weeks, and a future story would be all Sith, all dark side. So that's where my head was at. But the Vernestra twist could be interesting. Again, it would sell that point or hammer home that point of the Jedi failed this guy as much as anything else, and again speak to the failings of the Jedi Order. This show has been a lot about the ways in which the Jedi fail the galaxy, fail the people of the galaxy, and fail each other because of their, to quote Palpatine, narrow-minded, dogmatic view of the Force. And you know, and Vernestra, which as a High Republic fan, this is just heartbreaking to know that this is where she winds up. That she is such an embodiment of that if you needed a character to be the one to literally scar this guy, of the characters we know on the show, unfortunately she's the one. So that's an interesting, I like that theory. I still more buy into the Sith Master one, but if it goes this Sith, way, I'll take it. It's not I wouldn't be upset.
I think even just the way they kind of married up the kind of conversations, and then we get this whole storyline of Vern and Mog. We'll get there. We'll get to Mog. We'll you know, we got that storyline of them. You know, they're going, oh, who could have done this? And then someone really powerful, and then they get that shot of Vern looking like that she's piecing something together in her mind, because I think she's thinking of a certain ex-Padawan that she had that went not down the right path, and that, you know, that kind of scene in conjunction with Khmer kind of mentioning that he was a part of the Order, his master turned on him, and he has a very whip-like scar. Like it just all kind of married together in my mind. I think it just felt right.
It could work. It could work. Yeah. I like it. Any you know, those sort of the final moments of this storyline involve Osha putting on the helmet. I like the view that you get through the like weird little, like tiniest little eye slits in the world. Which, by the way,
to work with there.
Yeah, not much to work with. By the way, if there's a terrific behind the scenes video that Manny Jacinto posted on his social media of how he trained to fight with this thing, it's like he's got like one of those like helmets with a face shield on it, and that they've covered with a piece of paper and cut a tiny slit in it. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely hilarious that this is what they were training in. You can go see it on his Instagram. He posted it. It's terrific. Also the crack on the when you're looking through it and all you can see is the black with the little bit of lights shining through it. For all of my Doctor Who fans out there, that looked an awful lot like the crack in the universe in Amy Pond's wall. So I had that thought as well. But you know, we end with her choosing to put on this helmet and learn the truth. What do you think of, you know, the fact that she seems to be open and ready to learn the truth? Do you think we've seen enough to get her to this point?
Seen enough to get her to this point. I mean, no, but we will probably see this point. That's probably my answer to the question directly. But I definitely think this is where we're going with it. Seeing her kind of understand whether she's kind of forced into it in a way, pun intended, because I think my current theory as well is that there's some sort of force, not spell, but effect with this helmet that with it on she is susceptible to a certain mind control or something. I think there's going to be something that she kind of succumbs to within the Force because of Khmer. So I don't think, again, I don't think this is as direct as, oh, Osha's turned now. I think it's just this curiosity that has led her to not the right path that she should be. But I don't think she's fully turned at this point.
No, I don't think she's
seeing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say she's fully turned either, but I think this is it does speak to the effectiveness of what Kamira's been doing across this episode to actually make, where she has gone again from believing wholeheartedly in the Jedi. Because remember, in the first episode, there's the prison break. And the other prisoners are like, what, you believe the Jedi are going to save you? You believe the Jedi are going to do the right thing? And she's like, yes, I do. I believe in the Jedi. And here she is now. Enough of a seed of doubt has been planted in her mind that she knows, or she has begun to believe, that the Jedi were lying to her, or that the Jedi are, if not lying, withholding the full truth. And now here is Kamira offering her this way to see the truth. And whether it's a spell or anything else, I think it's going to show her what really happened that night on Brendok. And again, much in the same way that Maul told the truth, Dooku told the truth, Vader told the truth, Ben Solo should have been telling the truth in Last Jedi. It is the truth that is going to be so much more painful to her. And because the Jedi didn't tell her the truth, it's because they tried to hide it. She's now going to reach that point where she can no longer feel she can trust the Jedi, which is a tragedy, to be sure. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the other twin. We begin again where we more or less left things off, with May pretending to be Osha with Sol, and Sol is going through the motions trying to contact the Jedi Order. Do you think Sol knew the whole time, or do you think he really didn't figure it out until the true hero of the story, Basil, let him in on the secret?
Yeah, I definitely think he didn't know until there was a certain point that I think it might have clicked over for him. But I genuinely think, especially with this storyline, these scenes that we get of Sol, it was very much focused on how human essentially the Jedi can be with their emotions. And it is hard to just go, oh, I'm in an order where I just got to suppress everything. That kind of really comes out here. And with a lot of his scenes, with his emotion and I mean, incredible performance by Lee Jung-jae, I think was so compelling. It was really, really good. But because I'm under the impression that was the storyline, that his emotion and reeling and understanding and realizing what has happened to everyone around him that he brought on this mission. He brought like 10 Jedi on that mission and they're gone. Not to mention his own Padawan as well. So I think he was blinded by his emotions. That kind of term connotates something bad, but I think in this moment it was almost like a sad. It's like he's just so overcome by grief and just realization that he couldn't have sensed that this person might have been someone else. Like I don't think he did, and it wasn't a lot of time. Like it only took him like a few conversations to realize, in my opinion. So I don't think he was doing this big game. I think the focus was on he was blinded by his emotions and then realized, oh, hang on, you're not Osha. What's going on here?
Yeah. I think, again, like you said, I think it's a testament to Lee Jung-jae as an actor that, like, there's real pain, and I think we as the audience feel it to an extent because we really liked Jecki and we liked Yord and we saw all those other characters, even though we didn't really get to know the sort of red shirt Jedis, but we did like those too, and there's there's some pretty brutal close-ups of their corpses later on in the episode, which, credit to Daphne Keane and Charlie Bennett for getting another episode's worth of pay out of this for those one day of lying in the dirt. But here's, when you get back to the ship, I think that's the moment that it hit me of just how devastating and tragic everything that went down was. Not because I didn't see it in the episode, but just because, in the episode, you're so caught up in the, wow, it's cool. And wow, there's the reveal. And wow, look at this. And wow, look at that. And it's only when you get to the actual moment where you're back on the ship that used to be so full. And it's just Soul. And it's just, May, but you just meant that he thinks it's Osha.
It's Osha.
And the sadness is so profound in Soul. And I think you're right. Blinded is exactly the right word. Usually when we talk about that, we talk about blinded by hatred, blinded by anger, blinded by all this stuff. He's blinded by sadness. And he wants so badly to believe that Osha is with him. Because that's like one good thing. All this bad stuff has happened, but the one good thing is that Osha is still alive. Osha's still with them. There's still hope for Osha. And he doesn't even get that. It's just another layer of tragedy for this character to find out that actually the one thing you thought you succeeded at, which was keeping Osha safe, you actually failed at, because she's now in the hands of a stranger. And that moment where he hugs her, I think that's a real genuine, like, here we are, here we are together. I have, this is, if I've done nothing else, I've kept you safe.
Yeah, I've saved one. Yeah,
I've saved one. Which may well lead into the next episode of I saved one. I was only able to save one twin. Might be something that sort of, becomes a recurring thing across the next couple of episodes. But yeah, really, really beautiful stuff. And then I'll be honest, I didn't fully get what May's objectives were here. She's just kind of sneaking around, and I don't know.
Yeah, this is actually a part where I think I have some criticism come in, because the Osha storyline, I'm like, okay, I'm a bit iffy, but I'm getting it together. But I have not a clue with May's intentions. Like, I get what I'm watching her do things, but I do not know her intentions. I don't get it. But it's not like some mysterious way. It wasn't some like, oh, what is she gonna do now? It was like, what is she doing? Is she mad? Is she turning? Is she what? Like, it wasn't intriguing to me. It was I genuinely don't understand this character. So I didn't super it was very funny because I found Soul's performance and character really interesting in these scenes, but then I had no understanding of May's point that she, I mean, even just her whole idea of switching and being with Soul, like she's just in episode 4 or episode 4 and 5, she switched and she's like, oh, I'm not going to kill any more Jedi. I'm going to be with my sister. I guess the conversation she had with Osha in episode 5 begs that, oh, Osha isn't going to, like, the sister that I wanted to reconnect with isn't going to reconnect with me in the way that I want. I'll go back to killing Jedi. I was like, is that where she's going? She's just like, oh, okay, I'll just, if that's not going to happen, I will kill Jedi, then that's fine. But then she ends up like talking to him a bunch, but even within the conversations, I wasn't really following her intention. Was it just she had to be revealed the information he was saying? I don't know. I didn't connect with that.
Yeah, and I didn't quite get the stuff with the the Jedi are trying to contact them. They're unable to contact them. Like, is the point of this that like she's holding them up, like she's stopping them from? She doesn't want the Jedi to catch them. Does she want to just steal the ship and run away? Does she want to steal, or does she want to kill Soul? Does she just want to, break into the, does she want to break into the Jedi temple? Like there wasn't it wasn't clear what her goals were. She was just kind of sneaking around and like almost getting caught, but getting away with it because Soul was so distraught and so desperately wanted to believe in her being Osha that he sort of lets it fly. And the whole thing with the pip droid and stuff, it didn't quite add up. There was a part of me that almost wondered, like on the rewatch, when Soul was talking about oh, you love that droid, you're protecting that droid. It almost made me wonder if in that moment he knew it was May and he was trying to give her what she needed to continue this ruse, continue to pretend to be Osha. But again, that didn't seem to go anywhere because a few minutes later he stuns her. And, again, look, Basil is the most perfect creature in the most perfect story in the most perfect universe. But I'm not quite sure what my buddy was up to either in this episode. I'll be perfectly honest. He seemed to have figured it out, but it took him a real long time to get that information to Soul.
Well,
it was like he was looking for proof, and it wasn't until like just the last minute. I wasn't quite sure what. Well,
because I thought this storyline was going to be really it was kind of interesting. Like the way it's set up, like he was trying to charge the Pip. To be like, oh, like maybe there's some sort of tracker thing or something in there that he will give, like he'll just give the Pip to Soul, and then Soul will be like, oh no, like this means that like Osha's alive, or so I don't know. There would be some a bit more directive. He just needs to charge Pip and then give it to Soul. I think that I thought that was going to be the story. But I kind of get what you mean here. It was like, and then in the like, I have no clue what that scene was with him coming out of his burrow.
Yeah.
Attacking, if we can even use that word, attacking.
The friggin' oil in her
oil?
face. And, yeah, or whatever like, that was.
Wait, what? I was like, this is so random. I was like, was that a whole scene just a factory reset Pip? Yeah. I think it was. So yeah, I have a lot of I don't know what was going on here.
Yeah, it definitely, there was good stuff in this storyline, again with Soul and some of the moments with him and May, I think were kind of those moments were good, but the overarching, like what exactly was going on, there was a lot of movement when that movement, it never really went anywhere. It just kind of wound up in the same spot, and much in the storyline, much in the same way as the storyline ends much in the same way as the other one, with Soul, as we've said, finally saying, I'm gonna tell you what happened. I'm gonna tell you for real. Here is here's the truth. Here's what really happened. Let's talk about the other storyline, which is the Vernestra storyline. It begins, kind of in an interesting way with her talking via hologram with a senator about the political enemies of the Jedi that have been alluded to all the way back to episode 1. I can tell from the look on your face, Anna, that you have a lot to say about it. So I'm just going to cede the floor to you.
So much to say. How many episodes? This is 6 episodes in. This was the best scene of this show so far. And I'll tell you why. This scene, it makes, not that they don't make sense, but it makes the prequels make sense.
Sure,
it sets up the whole undertone of the entire prequel trilogy. Everything in Clone Wars, this sets it up. This one conversation, this one scene, and the tonality and just whatever the senator was saying. I forget what. I'm so sorry. There's a beetle on my desk. I've totally lost my thought. Hang on. Which the most Australian thing to happen?
Was it That's Paul, right. George, John, or Ringo? Which one was it?
Oh, come on. Jeez. Okay, we're sorted now. There's bugs everywhere. Oh my God. I need a light whip to slice them with. What was I saying? Yes. The senator saying, we value the transparency of the Jedi. There was like a whole quote that he says around that, but the key thing being he's saying the transparency of the Jedi. I'm like, oh my God, we have 3 movies about how the Jedi aren't transparent. That's such a great connection. That is such a great just point. And if anything, I'm like on the back of saying this is like the greatest, most important scene of this show so far. it also kind of comes with a criticism I think I have of we should have been getting a lot more of these points and hints throughout the whole show. I think this storyline should have been a stronger point of the Acolyte, of setting up why are the Jedi not so fantastic in the prequels. And we're getting that in some ways with, but that's only within themselves and the Force, with, you know, how they're dealing with a Sith user. That we're only getting that in that way. But I think what I personally really wanted from this show is seeing that how within the context of the galaxy their downfall has played out, and how has that come to be. And so yeah, it kind of comes with criticism because I'm like, we should have had a lot more of this, but really important scene. I think this really shows a lot. And Vern just being like, well, we'll talk about it later. Hey, okay. Like, so good. So good. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100% on this. Like, this scene is great. It's really, really interesting stuff. And it speaks to a storyline that should have been much more present in this show. And, you know, because it is relevant, right? Like, the Jedi's losing their way in the big picture, in the sort of the public life, the political life, coincides with them losing their way on a personal level. And so the show has mainly focused on a personal level, but it's all interconnected. It's all related to one another. I think we talked about it in the first episode. Jedi shouldn't have political enemies. That should be completely antithetical to the whole idea of the Jedi Order. They're not they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be a political entity. They shouldn't be thinking about politics. They should be thinking about serving the light, doing the right thing, helping people, going out there and you know, just trying to make the galaxy a better place, rather than worrying about how they're perceived. Are they getting funding? Are they going to be shut down? Or is there going to be oversight? Is there going to be all that stuff? That should be the farthest thing from their minds. They shouldn't even be on Coruscant in the way that they are. That is, you know, the Jedi should be much more like, you know, the sort of Octu vibes, you know, guys, you know, the monks out there in the middle of the ocean meditating on stuff, and then, you know, going out into the galaxy from time to time to try and, you know, enact what they have seen or what they have learned in their meditations. And so this feels like it should have been much more present, and I feel like that would have, you know, really strengthened a lot of elements of the show, because again, you know, it's weird to consistently go back to quoting Palpatine, but all those who hold power are afraid to lose it, even the Jedi. And so again, this is what makes, you know, this point in Vernestra's life so tragic when you know where she comes from the High Republic books. But she is the embodiment in this storyline of the Jedi not caring about discovering the truth, but just caring about having a convenient story, having a convenient answer to what happened. She is not, she is interested, I think, to a point, in discovering the truth behind what's going on with May and her master and all that stuff. But her and Ki-Adi-Mundi and all of these other you know, Jedi of this time period, they would rather just be able to report to the council, yep, dealt with that, all good. It was May, she did all the killings. That you can go tell the Jedi that you know, she's you know, a byproduct of this weird you know, covenant of witches who manipulate the Force in dark and unnatural ways, and that's what it is. We shut them down years ago, but there was one of them left, and we found her. We've shut her down. It's over, done with, dealt with. No oversight needed, please and thank you. That's what she would rather do, rather than the harder, more difficult answer of, you know, these people that they seemingly have wronged have come back to haunt them, and now as a result they've actually uncovered that their ancient enemy, the people that pose the greatest threat to not just them but to the galaxy as a whole, are back and may be ready to, you know, really unleash chaos on the galaxy. They don't want to face that reality. The Jedi could, this is going to be one of the tragedies of this show, cut the Sith off before they ever got to Palpatine. If the Jedi just said, you know what, we need all the resources we have So let's get the High Council involved, get all the best people involved. Let's go find Khmer and find his master and end this once and for all. We never would have gotten to Sheev Palpatine. We never would have gotten to Plagueis. We wouldn't have gotten Death Stars and Empires and Sith Eternal, and all of that stuff could have been avoided. But because they were more worried about their political standing in the galaxy, they let all that happen. They let all that happen because it was inconvenient at the time. And so that is quintessential to this story. It should have been much more present in there. And I think it would have made everything all the more richer, all the more interesting, and made these episodes better, because we would have had a larger, bigger picture of the whole galaxy. And, I think to me, that still the best of the live action Star Wars is Andor. All right, let's get ready to fight, Hannah.
Gotta bring it up, don't you?
Is Andor, and part of the reason I think Andor really, really works is because it is a really personal story for Cassian, and we spend a lot of time focused on Cassian. But there's the Deidre Miro stuff, there's the Cyril stuff, there's the Luthen stuff, and the Mon Mothma stuff that's happening all around it that isn't, like, for the most part, really isn't directly related to what Cassian is doing yet, but it's happening. And so you're seeing how Cassian's actions relate, react, and cause stuff to happen out in the bigger galaxy. And that's what I think is missing from this show is, I think for the most part, we've had really good storylines involving these Jedi characters, but we're missing the larger context of what this means for the galaxy as a whole. And because of that, I think the show winds up feeling a little bit weaker and a little bit like there's still potential left on the table here. When, if you just add this sort of, honestly, it's like a C plot to the series, but you make it sort of the equivalent of the Deidre Miro stuff in Andor, then I think the whole thing is elevated and made more impactful, because we understand have a better understanding of what all this means. That's my thought.
I agree. I don't have too much to add there, but I just to a comment you've just previously said is that I do think this overarching theme that's kind of needed in the show, Andor did do that well. Like your example of, like, we kind of have all these character focuses, and when it's kind of through this perspective of Cassian, but at the end of the show we get this thematic picture of the oppression of the Empire and how that suffocates people, but also how that can lead people to rise up and connect and band together to overcome. That's that thematic overarching thing, where I couldn't tell you what the thematic overarching thing is for Acolyte. Don't know what it is. It's like, okay, Soul is like kind of iffy. There's a mystery, 100%. What's the overarching thing? I think it should be this storyline of kind of the morality of the Jedi, and we're kind of tapping on the door a little bit.
Yeah,
we're kind of going up to the door and a bit too shy to ring the doorbell or knock on the door. We're like right there, but we're not doing it. But so I think, yes, that's where where this show does lack. That thematic overview of it.
Yeah, because I think like it said, I think it's meant to be, Jedi and their relationship with power and what power does to you. I think is the theme, but it's not quite as there as maybe it should be, and as much as it was in, say, Andor. Now, to be fair, there's 2 episodes left, and if these last 2 episodes really sort of like hit it out of the park and are just like flawless and perfect across the board, we may look back on the rest of the season and say, yeah, there were some shaky points, but now that we have the whole story, it's easier to judge and say, yes, they did a really good job at conveying this theme, because we are judging it against, in this conversation at least, against Andor, which, Andor season 1 is a complete entity, and so we can look at it from episode 1 to episode 12 and say, yes, that's what's going on here. Whereas here we're looking at episode 1 to 6, guessing at 7 and 8 and say like, I don't know just yet if this is going to pull it off. And also, 12 episodes for Andor, 3 episode arcs. The episodes are all longer. Like it just had more time to marinate in this stuff. Whereas, we had 2 episodes that were barely 35 minutes in the last couple of weeks. So yeah. Again, like runtime isn't indicative of quality. You can have really great short episodes and really crappy long episodes, but sometimes you do want a little bit more time to explore these ideas. Let's you mentioned earlier that Vernestra's he's not her Padawan, but he's an apprentice or a Jedi Knight of some kind. I can't even remember what this guy's name, but it's the dude with the blonde hair, the British accent. Hannah,
yes,
again,
Mog.
Mog. Perfect name. Take it away. Tell us what you think of Mog.
Oh man, where do I start? Jeez, man. Mog. God damn. That's why we don't bring like everyone when we get to Clone Wars. Like not every Jedi comes on missions because sometimes they're just too annoying. This guy's so irritating. I mean, I think he's there as a symbolic mirror to kind of represent more of Vern's character. I don't think Mog is some massive interesting story point that we should study, but I think his purpose is to show up kind of he's kind of like the voice of like stating the obvious kind of guy. And that against a character like Vern and how we're portraying her in this show, I think is important. And I think that's what that dynamic was for. Because I feel like every line he had was just like, it's a big forest. We can't go in there. But like it's just like, everything was just like, okay, well, yeah, but we got to, okay. And every line Vern had in response to him was just like, well, we have to do it. It's fine. Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting. But I think that's important. Some of my favorite, like critically, in Star Wars content, some of the best characters are the ones that don't actually have a point or a purpose themselves. Well, don't have an interest themselves, and we need to love them or care about them, but they're there to reflect and teach us something about the person they're kind of with, the dynamic against someone else. That's like the best characters written in Star Wars. And I think this is a good example of that. I think he was just to kind of prove, because by the end of that kind of dynamic, I'm actually very into Vern's motivation now. We've barely gotten any of her, but I'm like, all the stuff we have seen, even when it's brief dialogue, it's saying something about her perspective and about what she's believing on the Jedi, and her making critical decisions that are potentially are wrong and aren't the right decisions. But why and how she gets to that point is what is interesting. So yeah, that's kind of my overview of Mog.
Mog is just sort of there so that Vern can have somebody to talk to. He's just sort of there to bounce
so she can be like, no, Mog, that's not right. Like
exactly.
That's why he's there. Well,
I've found this, I keep referring to Vern's storyline here versus her storyline in the High Republic. I found this really, really fascinating, and I kind of love that Leslie Headland like went out of her way to pick a character that this almost feels wrong that this is where Vern's storyline winds up, but because it feels wrong, it also kind of feels right, because we see her in the High Republic books as sort of this young, hotshot, up and coming idealist Jedi who I think people are looking at as the future of the Jedi Order. And in this show that is, 50, 100 years later, she's lived a whole life, and she's no longer that young, up and coming idealist. She's now tasked with great responsibility within the Jedi Order. And as a result, she has become the man, so to speak. Like, she is everything wrong with the Jedi Order personified in one person, or not everything wrong, but she's come to be that representative of what's wrong with the Jedi Order, a role that Mace Windu kind of plays in the prequel trilogy, of just embodying these flaws in a really sort of visceral way. And, obviously the High Republic books are still playing out. We don't know how Phase 3 is going to end next year with Trial of the Jedi and all that stuff. But presumably all this stuff that happens in Vern's youth has an impact on her. And my suspicion is that she comes away from the events of the High Republic, from the Nile crisis, from all that stuff, feeling like the Jedi are absolutely essential to the galaxy. The Jedi are absolutely essential, and at all costs, the Jedi must be protected and must be allowed to continue to operate in the way that they have. Otherwise, the Jedi Order is going to fall. Things are going to go badly, and so we must protect and maintain that no matter what. That, over the decades, manifests itself into protecting the Jedi Order from political pressure, because that's the threat that she perceives to the Jedi, rather than it being some sort of external thing, the Sith, anything like that. This ultimately is a mistake. It's a flaw. It's not where she should go. Luke says in The Last Jedi, to say that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity. And I think Vern is fallen into that vanity a little bit, and is just like, the Jedi are the only thing preventing the dark side from taking over, and therefore we must protect the Jedi, even if this means missing the dark side, the actual threat of the dark side.
Yes.
So it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy in a way, and I feel for Vern. Now I've said I feel for Vern. Then it seems at the end of this episode, like,
immediate turnaround.
It's strongly implied that she is going to set Sol up as the scapegoat for all of this.
Yes.
It seems like there's been a lot of conversation about the show of, are they making the Jedi into the villains? Are they doing too much to make the Jedi antagonists? Are they undermining the Jedi? And I'm like, no, they're just showing the Jedi as they were, both good and bad. Their strong points and their weak points. This is the point where it's like, no, they're making this Jedi the villain because she's just gonna pick some dude because, again, it's convenient, and pin this entire massacre on him, let him be the fall guy, and then cover up the rest of this. And I don't know. I don't think that's cool, Vern. I don't like that. That's I don't think Stellan would have liked that either. Your master.
Rip.
going right for the jugular there.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I do agree that I think this is where it's going to go. I think this is where it's going to go. But my only kind of addition to this thought of going against Sol, I think I'm not a fan of Sol in the way that I don't think he's good. I think he did something really morally bad, and he spent 16 years trying to cover it up, trying to get over it. He hasn't been able to.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to find out he's not as saintly, Qui-Gon-esque as we think he is. And I think Vern is almost right to do this in the end.
Oh.
I have a feeling that we will see Sol. I mean, we'll get to this specific moment at the end of the episode anyway, I'm sure. But he doesn't, like, this whole ending of he turns off the tracker to be like, we're here, we need help, and that hologram, and he speeds off obviously into hyperspace before they arrive, so he can't be talk to him and connect with them. I think he knows that whether it's a setup or not, that they will come to an understanding of what's happened. And I also have a feeling Vern might know what Sol did 16 years ago, and she's gonna go, okay, I cannot cover his butt anymore. I cannot cover this up. And she's gonna have to either come out with it or tell someone about it or do something with this information of whatever he did on Brendok. And I think Sol knows that in this moment, and he goes, I can't get out of this again. I can't return to the Jedi Order again, ever. That's my prediction. So I'm kind of devil's advocate here. I think Vern is right to try and prove Sol as not that innocent here, because I think she knows that he might not be, in general, as innocent as he's painted to be.
Yeah. Well, and like that would make for a convincing cover story if you need to say, if you need to cover up, you need to pin this blame on somebody. If the truth comes out about Brendock, it can be like, well, this guy actually also led to this terrible thing, this other terrible thing that happened. And, so this is just further evidence that it's one bad apple within our order who lost his way. We've dealt with it. Please, Senate, leave us alone. Don't bother us.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. All right. That does sort of, we've covered the main points of this episode, but even though Ben is not here, I think
we're gonna do it.
I think we should do it. I think in Ben's place, we'll do a special edition of everyone's favorite segment. It's once again time for Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Sorry, no Ben this week, but we do have connections in the corner. The one that I wanted to draw attention to, because I liked this one. Again, we've talked a lot about Vernestra in the context of her High Republic storylines, but I liked the call out that Vernestra is still not great in hyperspace, because that's like kind of a key thing in the books, is that this is a character who she has visions. She gets unwell in hyperspace, and she starts to have visions of Mari Santeca and things like that. So I kind of liked that little call out in the episode. So that's the one connection I found. And did you find any connections you want to? I'm gonna put you on the.
You're making me panic here.
Yeah. Any connections? Just think back on the vastness of Star Wars.
Yes. Okay. In my visual dictionary brain. Okay. I think I don't know if this is a connection. It's more of a that's a question. Is this a connection? Is in the room where Vern takes that call to the senator, and it's just some sort of Jedi planning room, I assume. The kind of, I don't know, what do you call them? Like battle planning screens. Oh, it's in the picture. Oh my god, amazing.
Those things in the background.
Yes.
Yes.
I know that we have a bunch of these screen planning things in like around Star Wars, but it's like these look exactly like the Rebellion ones. Like these really do to me. Like some of them is like, oh, we've seen like there's through the Clone Wars, there's like, oh, there's screen kind of things they work on. But this one, I was like, this is from Rebel Alliance like took this one. Like once the Jedi Order died, they did a big like garage sale, or I don't know what you guys call it, like thrift sale or whatever.
I don't know what they call it.
Estate sale, maybe that's
when somebody's dead. Yeah.
That fits. They did a massive Jedi temple estate order, and the Rebellion picked these up. I reckon.
yeah. It's one of those. It's one of those things it's clearly left over from the original trilogy that like they had just like, they're like, what can we make look futury but also have practically there on set, and so they have these things that are all throughout the original trilogy, and then by the time the prequels roll around, George is like, no, I want it to actually look like the future. Put these things, put holograms and all this stuff. And so like there's very few of these things in the prequels. But then once you get to the stuff where George is either involved but sort of in a secondary role, like on the Clone Wars, or not involved at all, like with all the current projects, you have the people that grew up loving the original trilogy going like, no, put the weird circle light up tracker things in the background. We want that's what we
read
want.
This.
Yeah.
Like, what does this even tell you? Like, what, the topography of somewhere? What? Why?
Yeah, who the hell knows? All I know is that whenever you're going through the line of Rise of the Resistance and you get to the part where they have those things, I always am like, I go right up to it. I'm like, look at that. I'm pointing at it just like they do in the movies.
That's so good. Oh, look, I can point like in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's great.
I look very serious and studiously at this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Other connections. I'm trying to think off the cuff, like what was around. No, I think it's
that's it.
We should have got Ben to page it in. I don't know.
Yeah, should have made Ben write in with his connections. Yeah. I will say, I missed last week's show, so we didn't really get to talk about.
So
I think you were.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know.
People were here. There was a show, and who knows?
There was something happened. I don't know.
We didn't really get to talk about last week's show, so obviously the reveal happened. If not the previous week, but like the week before, like some point in the lead up to that, we discussed, or I raised the possibility that Manny Jacinto might be playing Darth Plagueis, which you just completely out of hand.
Bring it up again
because he was so goofy and crazy and out of the way. Now that we've seen him as the scary, manipulative Sith Lord, are you ready to admit that is Darth Plagueis?
No way. No way. No way in hell. I don't think there's any chance of this being Plagueis. I think. I mean, well, actually, speaking of connections, we should like talking about this cortosis thing, talking about the Plagueis book. Like, that's connection. Boom. There you go.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely not anyone we know, but I think he knows of Plagueis. And I have another like crackpot theory. I don't know where this falls under in the conversation, but just a random crackpot theory I have to get off my chest is I think there's Cormier could be, if he could be hypothetically totally lying about the whole Jedi thing, and he was never a Jedi.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was. Maybe he was. But I think there's a connection with him and Plagueis and Plagueis doing some sort of, he trials and trying to make life and extend life and do all these sciencey things, that Cormier was like a science project of his. And he tried to do some weird sciencey things on him to make Cormier live forever, to like test things on. And that's why he has the scar, and that like Plagueis, like he was like a test tube for him, kind of thing. What the hell does this come under? It's not Plagueis. It's not Plagueis.
I don't know. I was saying earlier, at the end of this season, his Sith Master, played by David Harewood, is going to show up. And
Tenebrous. He could be Tenebrous for sure.
Yeah, David Harewood is Tenebrous. And Camille is Plagueis.
Dude, insane. I'd lose my head. I'd lose my mind.
It doesn't work. I'm willing to admit it doesn't work, because we have to go down the line of Sith Masters to apprentices, which is current Sith Master Camille, Osha, Plagueis, Palpatine. Like Osha is eventually going to inherit the Sith apprentice and master title, presumably. I'm assuming. I'm guessing based on.
I don't think so.
On where we're going. You don't think so? You don't think she's gonna? You don't think we're gonna have Darth Osha by the end of this? Okay.
If we do, I don't think she'll have anything to do with Palpatine. I think this is like an offshoot.
Oh, okay, a separate.
I don't. Yeah. I think this is a subsect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the whole rule of two thing exists. And there is some sort of lineage to Palpatine.
There's a whole bunch of Sith Master and Apprentice duos out there. Like, no, we're the real ones. These other guys are literally a bunch of fakers.
Literally, yeah. Oh no, don't forget those two. We're the two. We're the real two. Those aren't. We're not four. We're not four. Those are just two others.
I cannot wait for there to be like a novel or an animated series at some point set during the Clone Wars of like the other Sith Master and Apprentice that are like, no, that's Sidious and Tyranna's guys. They're not the real deal. No. Those are fake Sith. That's fake news. We're the real Sith. We're gonna institute our power in our way later on. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, but quite literally, this is like another crackpot theory I have, is that like this whole Knights of Ren conversation coming into things. I think Quamir is going to like live for another 100 years, even more, like 150 years. He's going to like just kind of wallow in the shadows for like all that time and be trying to build up his Knights of Ren gang. And then that's going to emerge in that pre-sequel time. And that could be a storyline. That he was never impressive or powerful enough to be a Palpatine or have anything to do with the Empire or Vader or anything. He's never going to be that. But he's kind of just this weird, neutral, sort of more Sith-like, or not neutral, but he's not a Sith, but he's just a Dark Force user. And he's just kind of qualmed with it in the shadows, in a way. Kind of almost like a Maul in Clone Wars.
Yeah,
it's like, what the hell is going on now?
Yeah, you made the thumbs up happen.
yeah. Is that what I don't? Oh, there we go.
Hey.
Happy 4th of July! Woo. Oh, that's good.
For everybody listening, Hannah somehow managed to make fireworks happen on her screen.
Oh God! Don't ask me how. Why? Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about settles things for this a rare. I mean, this is what happens when he's not here. Ben's Connection Corner becomes rare crackpot, or becomes crackpot theory corner with us. But that brings to an end a rare Benless edition of Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Oh, I feel like Ben's going to look at that segment and go, I couldn't kill it, but I think we might have just done it. I think we might have just ended this
sure.
of Ben's Connection Corner. Before we do final thoughts and score out of 10, is there anything else you want to bring up about the episode, Hannah?
I think that's it. I think I hit all my crazy theories for the characters, but hopefully more lightweight action. I think that's my last comment. That's got to come into play in the next 2 episodes for sure. Because cool weapon. Oh, so cool.
Yeah, these next 2 episodes are going to be fascinating to see, because like it seems next week is the truth about Brendock. But that still leaves episode 8 as like wide open, and we don't know the ultimate destinies of these characters. Yes, we know where the story ultimately goes, but that's like way further away than we're used to, right? Like Mando can end in a certain place, but the sequel trilogy is still 10, 15 years away from it. The prequels is 100 years away. Like this is a long time before anything we know to happen. So like anything can happen with these characters. Anything can happen with this storyline. I think there's a lot of space where this could go. But yeah, we'll wrap things up here. We'll do final thoughts and score out of 10. Now, we'll give our final thoughts and score out of 10 in just a moment. But I think the person we should give the first opportunity to give a score out of 10 to is Chris Seekell. Chris Seekell, who unfortunately could not be on this episode, but Chris did send in a really detailed and thorough voice note. He sent it to our group chat with the 4 of us, and I'm literally gonna hold my phone up here and play all of what Chris had to say, and I'm really hoping this is gonna work.
10 out of 10.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you.
Well done. Succinct, important, thrilling.
10 out of 10 from Chris. No idea what Ben thinks, but Hannah, let's go to you.
Where the hell is he?
Yeah,
he's probably sitting in a vat of barbecue sauce somewhere. I don't know what he's doing.
Well, the beginning of the episode when Manny goes for a swim in that kind of green water.
Yeah.
That's Ben, but with barbecue sauce. Yeah. Exactly. No, I had a final thoughts and score out of 10 for Teach/Corrupt.
Yes. Final thoughts. I think we got some great lore in this episode, but I didn't harp on it too much, but I did actually have a lot of issues with just how these pieces of information are being presented. It's just kind of being said to us. Yes, they're interesting. Yes, they're compelling. I think there's some great performances in this episode by Lee Jung Jae and also Manny Jacinto. But apart from that, there's just so much of the structure lacking from this. I think there needs to be way more context to the point that we are at in this show. Like I still feel like I'm this is the beginning of the show. Like this could have been an episode 2 for me, because I'm like, oh, we're just learning what's happening. So I think there's something really lacking in the structure and the layout so far for me. So I'm going to give it a surprisingly a 6 out of 10, because I love the what's the word, concepts, but it's not executing the right way for me.
That's fair. I'm going to give it a strong 8.5 out of 10 for this one. I really liked what we got. And if I look at this episode as an individual sort of part of the story, I think it's really strong. I think the problems that I have with it relate back to other episodes not setting this one up. So I feel like this executed on what it needed to execute, but the story as a whole has been up and down. There's been some speed wobbles and some speed bumps along the way that make certain moments within these episodes not hit quite as hard as they should, because the overall story, while it's been good, has not been fantastic in the way that I expect from Star Wars. I really like what Leslie Headland is doing. I really like her take on Star Wars and her approach to it and her approach to the themes, but I don't know if it's because they mandated a number of episodes, or there was just something happened along the way that it just left things being a little bit more shaky than I was hoping. And it'll be interesting when if we do the thing we sometimes do at the end of the season where we go back and look at our scores. This might be a rare instance where, like, I feel like I've given the individual episodes pretty high scores for the most part, with the exception of episode 4. And this might be a time where my average across the season might be higher than the score I give the season as a whole. But again, that all hinges on the final 2 episodes and how well they're able to pull all this together. One thing that gets discussed with these Star Wars series a lot is, would they be better as movies? And this came up a lot around Kenobi. And I think a lot of folks, and Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you might have fallen into this, felt that Kenobi might have been better as a movie.
Yes. And I almost still stand on that point. I literally just had a 30-minute discussion with my both my brothers like 2 days ago, just about how Kenobi should have been a movie and like how good it would have been. I mean, were you about to bring up, should this show be a movie?
Yeah. Because I on the Kenobi front, I like Kenobi as a series. I'll be honest. I like it as a series, and I think it works that way. This is the first one where I'm like, maybe should have been a movie. Maybe should have been a tight 2 hours, 15 minutes played in theaters, all in one go. But I don't know. What do you have a feeling on that at this point? Again, it's hard. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's hard to say because the season isn't over yet.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was about to say. Just be like, oh well, I mean, kind of maybe at this point. But I think at the end of the season, I'll probably have a more definitive answer on that. But potentially, because I think the just looking at this show, the interest of the story would have been like, if they went hard on this builds up to the Phantom Menace, this builds up to the whole Star Wars prequel trilogy, the Star Wars story, I think about, and this is coming from not a Hunger Games fan, and I haven't really seen Hunger Games all entirely.
Me
But
neither.
there's like that, there's that movie that's like pre the Hunger Games, and it's about that president guy or something. That was quite Songbirds of whatever the snake. Oh, I don't know. That one.
Songbirds
but
of
that
whatever
did quite
snakes.
well.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's good. That's it.
Yeah.
It kind of just set up. It's like, if it's a Star Wars movie, and before this, everything we know, like I think that would have been interesting. Again, I think the storyline would have obviously need to be tweaked a lot.
Yeah.
For movie context, but it's maybe heading in a direction of I agree that it could have been better as a movie.
Yeah. I'm
maybe.
wondering.
Maybe.
I'm wondering that, or maybe Star Wars shows perhaps could go more the Andor direction of 3-episode arcs or something like that, because those are Andor's basically 4 movies spread out across 12 episodes.
Yeah, literally.
To the point where like some of the breaks in the episodes are like, really, that's what you ended on? Let's all go to bed and get some rest. That's the end of episode of one of the Aldani episodes. They just end on that, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
that's the cliffhanger. We're gonna go to bed and get some rest. That's it. Nice. Anyway, yeah. Something I think we'll continue to ponder over the next couple of weeks as we reach the finish line here. We won't do a full Ask the SWU segment this week, because I know I think a lot of the questions submitted, I think generally, I think you guys listening would rather all 4 of us take a crack at them, but we will get to the soupies, the super chats. We'll start with the
good soup.
Yeah, we'll start with this one from Joel Davis, who says, actual odds that whoever the Sith Master is Plagueis or Tenebrous, or will it be someone brand new? So what do we think it's somebody we know or somebody new?
Bring in Darth Tenny. I'm ready for bring him in. Yep, I think it should be him. I think it should be Tenebrous. Absolutely.
I think it's going to be somebody new. I think it's going to be somebody brand new, because like I said earlier, I do think we're on the actual Sith line down to Palpatine. And so we're too far up for the Master to be somebody we know. I think we're going to go David Harewood, Manny Jacinto, Amantla Stenberg, Tenebrous, Plagueis, Ian McDiarmid, since I was talking in actor names for some reason there. That's where I think we're leading. Joel drops another one. It says, do you think Star Wars might be going a bit too overboard with the Jedi are failures stories and should show more Jedi as heroes stories?
Yes. I actually, the Acolyte currently is completely backwards of what I thought this show was going to be. I thought it was going to be focused on 1 or 2 Sith characters that are the Acolyte. They're going around doing bad shit. And the Jedi are these heroic, High Republic-esque kind of characters. They're not perfect. There'll be like some sort of character development with them. But in the end, they come in and save things.
They're going around and doing good shit.
Yes, good shit, bad shit, and good shit. It's essentially the story. But they are harping very hard on this, which I mean, but I did mention, I'm like, I love that they set up this perfect scene where it sets up how the Jedi are corrupted in the prequels. I do stand by that, but I think that needs to be balanced with why the Jedi are so good in this point. And I think that's why the High Republic, to me, is interesting. I've only read like 5 High Republic books. But what I have read, I've enjoyed, because it shows that heroic, angelic, fantastic side of the Jedi that I think as early as a Luke Skywalker paints, this, we all want to be a Jedi because we want to be good. And we want to be good people. I think they need to reinforce that a little bit. I think we have drifted from that idea for a while now.
Yeah, I think I do think that I think there are 2 stories that are coming up that will show us more of the Jedi as heroes storylines. One being the Rey movie. Will give us sort of the new Jedi Order, and we'll explore like what what are the lessons that we can take from all of these previous stories where the Jedi are, flawed? And the other one being the Dawn of the Jedi movie that will show us the Jedi at the beginning, and maybe there will be hints of the flaws that will eventually unravel in these stories here. But I think that the Dawn of the Jedi storyline will show us the first Jedi, and again, an ideal that the Jedi will try to strive towards. I don't think they've done too many Jedi as failure stories, to be perfectly honest, because like there's this one, and this one's really visceral. But like the prequels are a Jedi a failure story across 3 movies, but that was, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith next year.
It's still too raw.
Yeah,
it's still too raw, Dom.
Don't. The 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace this year. That movie was back in theaters. It made more money. Like that storyline's pretty far away. Obi-Wan Kenobi was a very pro Jedi storyline. Ahsoka is kind of neutral on it. It's kind of it shows the good and the bad, but ultimately I think is more leaning in on the good. The sequels, even though you spend a lot of The Last Jedi with Luke going, it's time for the Jedi to end. The Jedi suck. The Jedi are failures. All the Jedi did was bad shit. But ultimately, the part that people miss when they're complaining about The Last Jedi is Luke's arc is him realizing the importance of the Jedi as an idea, as something to strive towards, and his part in that as kind of the face of it. So The Last Jedi is a story that says there are problems with the Jedi and we should fix the Jedi, but ultimately we need the Jedi, or the Jedi are a good thing, a net positive for the galaxy. And Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, both, I think they show the Jedi as heroes, as something to strive towards, something to want to be. I think Rey's journey across all 3 of those movies really is an aspirational Jedi story. So I don't think they've gone too much overboard with this. Again, this one is very visceral, and given its place in the timeline and the nature of the story that it's telling, it may well end in a way where you don't get a resolution like The Last Jedi, where you go, no, actually the Jedi are needed, the Jedi are good. If it ends with Saul taking the fall for everything that happened and the Jedi Order covering it all up, and the character that is our protagonist turning to the dark side, and so that if there is a second season, we're following that character as they descend further into the darkness. That's a really visceral Jedi suck, Jedi are evil, Jedi are failures storyline. That I can, it's hard to, it's a hard thing to grapple with. But no, I don't think there's any other story that's quite gone this way, and it may not go as desperate and dark as I just laid out there. We don't know.
Tales. That's the only other one I can rebut you with is Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, Tales of the Jedi
shows that.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. That's a good point. But even in that, but even in that, the Ahsoka side of it, I think, presents like the Duke. I mean that show shows the duality of it. Like the Dooku side is, here are the flaws. Ahsoka's side shows, here are the aspirational parts of the Jedi. So, but yeah, there's a fair point. This one from Will of the Force says, because of all the Sith history surrounding Baldemic or Balsamic, that's what we were calling it before. What if it ends up being an opposite Act 2 of sorts? The light always needs the dark.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. That's a great concept.
100%.
That's good. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Love it.
Can they have a magical book tree library as well? Sith code?
Can it be called Act 1 or Act 3 or something?
Act 1, Act 2.
Act 2. The Act of 1, the Act of 2, the Act of many.
Act of 3, many. Oh, it's great. That's good. Yes. Let's do that.
in this episode, I did like the little call out that they have of Kamir saying, or Osha asks Kamir, "What do you want?" He says, "The power of two." A little
that was good. That was good.
Connection to the witches. I liked it. And then
Yes.
then you're supposed to sing after that, "The power of Manny."
Manny. Oh, nailed it.
And finally, from Joel, says, "Do you think Disney greenlights a season 2 for the show? And do you think the Acolyte should have a season 2?
This is an interesting question because if you asked me this 6 weeks ago, I was like, yeah, for sure. If not, they're already making it. But I'm in a very different spot now. I am, and this is like not like trying to take my personal, like, like I'm kind of looking at it as if they would, not do I want a season 2? That's not what I'm answering, but will they? I think is 50-50. I think it's actually up in the air. I don't know how detailed do we want to get? I was talking to a buddy about this. Shout out Indie Yoda, who's a friend of mine, my fellow Australian content creator, Star Wars content creator.
Aussie.
We were actually, we were having a chat about this. And I'm maybe concerned is the word. I think I'm concerned that they will perhaps do a little bit of what happened with Last Jedi and presented fantastic thoughts. And to a lot of fans, they were really great and really interesting in the story and what happened and da-da-da. But I think there's a very fascinating connection with the fan feedback and reaction to shows, to what goes ahead, to what continues. And I'm interested to see what happened because that's fact. That's not, again, not bias. I think that's fact. They reacted to the sequels in a certain way. They reacted to from shying away from them, and then they reacted to the Mandalorian a different way. That did overwhelmingly well. So they said, double it, actually times by 10, and we'll take that. So I'm very fascinated to see how they take the fan reaction. Not that they bend to every need and comment of fans, if anything, hardly at all to direct comments of anything, but in general for the direction of their content, I think they have there's some sort of way that they weigh up things. So I'm fascinated. I'm honestly 50-50 that they will continue with this. I do think there will be a second season. I do think there will be. There's some stuff has come out in the last couple of days that suggests, or the last couple of weeks that suggest that the numbers are good in terms of viewership. Disney protects this stuff like it's the Ark of the Covenant. Like they don't want anybody to know what this stuff is. So they don't want us to know what the numbers are, but so we're left to sort of read the tea leaves from reports from third-party firms that look into this thing. But from what's been said, it sounds like the numbers are actually really good. And it sounds like sometimes, if you can believe it, fan reaction and fan discussion and fan perception of things doesn't actually match reality of what people are watching and what people are talking about. Like people talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi now, the show, like as if it were some sort of great misfire that nobody appreciated, when in reality it's I think the most watched show other than maybe the first season of The Mandalorian. So just because there is so much noise around the Acolyte doesn't mean that noise is reflective of actual audiences. It's the it's the partisans versus the silent majority or the independent sort of thing. It's not actually it's not actually that controversial a show. Most people just look at it and go, "Oh, I liked that this week," or "It wasn't as good as last week." Yes, and if I can speak to that directly, actually, just with personal experience, there's no denying the intense hellfire that has been the internet with this show. But that's with everything, in every show, in every franchise, with every movie, that exists in these days, and in this time. But with Acolyte specifically, I've been to 2 conventions in the past month. One was Acolyte just premiered, and then other one was 2 weeks ago, so we're up to episode 3 or 4. And both times, lots of Star Wars fans there, cosplayers and things, and I love talking to people on the ground there, and not for content purposes, just as a person, like, you know, if I go up and talk to someone.
You're like, no, this conversation doesn't count unless we're recording it. Everybody get ready.
Say what you just said again.
Yeah.
But just talking to randoms about Star Wars, and I'll go, oh yeah, what do you think of the Acolyte? Like 99% of people are like, oh yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I liked it. It's like, but if you go on Twitter, you get painted a different picture that everyone hates this and everyone's saying this, but it proves to me the fact of the minority of the internet. They cause such a ruckus. They just think their voice is the be all end all. But I'm like, the pool of about 20 or 30 Star Wars fans in real life I spoke to all were like, oh yeah, it's a cool show. I like it. The cool lightsaber. Yeah. And then, you know, just had a cool thing to say about it. And I was like, what? Like, what? I haven't seen that on the internet. But then I'm like, oh, the internet is just this microcosm of a weird group of people. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I 100% it is. And you know, welcome to everybody to our weird little subsect of that. If we're gonna go off of like, you know, going off of like convention experiences back in March at Toronto Comic-Con, I moderated a panel that we called Celebrating Star Wars. It was just like a fan discussion about all things Star Wars. And at the beginning of it, we did like a little like informal poll of the audience, this like packed room that we had that was stunning, of like, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? And like the answers were so varied, so all over the place. And weirdly, like the movie that got like almost the least number of people saying it was their favorite one was The Empire Strikes Back, which is the like default answer if you ask people on the internet. It's either Empire or it's Revenge of the Sith. It's one or the other. And yet we had like all sorts. The answers were all over the place. And so it just goes to show that like reality does not always match with the internet and what people are saying online. And so I think likely the numbers, if these third-party things are to be believed, then the numbers are pretty good. D23 is coming up next month. I expect to be at the Honda Center at the Lucasfilm portion of the studios showcase, and I expect a second season to be announced. Then I expect Leslie will come on stage and then say, yeah, we're going to do another one. So yeah, I think that'll be the case. I do think a second season will look very, very different. You know, I'm worried about myself going into these last 2 weeks, because I have a very specific picture in my mind of how I think the next couple of episodes will or should play out. And I know that having that expectation is a bad thing, because then if it doesn't happen, I might be a little bit disappointed off the hop and not judge the series based on what it is, because I'm judging it versus what I think is what I think it should be in my mind. And so I'm a little bit worried about that, but I can see a second season having almost an entirely new cast. Like you keep Amandla and you keep Manny, and everybody else around them is going to be different, because I mean, everybody else is dead. Jackie's dead. Jackie's dead. Yord is dead. Torben and Indara and all these characters, even though we'll probably see them next week, they're dead in the present. Like I said, I don't think Soul is going to make it out. It'll just be Manny, Amandla, and Basil. Those will be the only characters that make it.
Basil. Yeah, for sure.
They'll be the ones that
That's
make it.
it.
We got another super chat. This one comes from Joseph Cooper, who says, "This is a what if, but with all of this Soul is iffy talk, would Qui-Gon have contacted the Jedi and waited if Maul had killed Obi-Wan and kidnapped Anakin, or would he have just gone to save Anakin?" So this is sort of like a hypothetical, because we're wondering, if in the same way that Kamir killed Jecki and kidnapped Osha, if we put Qui-Gon in Kamir's place and we say Anakin got kidnapped by Maul, Obi-Wan is dead, what's Qui-Gon's next move? Is he going back to the council? Is he going rogue? Is he doing something in between? What are we thinking?
Well, okay. Here's where I think it's gonna be different, because I think Sol has fundamentally done something wrong, morally wrong in his past, and Qui-Gon, I don't think he has. Like, Qui-Gon's a genuinely good-hearted person, and I think the character of Qui-Gon, the difference between them, I think he's as much as his kind of beliefs maybe vary from the Jedi, his beliefs are strongly to helping people and helping like anyone who needs it, and trying to do the morally right thing. Where I think there's something messy in Sol's past where he's trying to cover it up, and he's trying to not be honest and not tell the truth, where Qui-Gon's always trying to be truthful. So I think best case scenario, Qui-Gon would do both in that situation. I think he's going to I think he's going straight to Anakin, because I think he's following his beliefs and truth that Did I drop out there?
One of us dropped.
Okay, pranked.
Yeah, I don't know which without a third person. I don't know who it was. It could have been you. It could have been me. All I know is you stopped talking at one point.
This is what you get when you try and connect Australia and Canada. Wi-Fi.
It's like two cans with a string in between is basically what we're going.
Literally. Hello.
You've got yours as a Marmite jar, and mine is a maple syrup jug, and that's what we're working on.
Vegemite.
Vegemite.
I'm not UK. Let me look.
Oh right, Vegemite. Excuse me, not Mark.
Yeah. Jeez, blasphemy. Yeah, you and your poutine over there.
Yeah,
poutine, mate.
Yeah, that's how Kieran and I used to do the Clone Wars Strikes Back, was with the Marmite jar, was that. But you've got the Vegemite. Yeah, that's true.
Vegemite, come on, man.
Yeah, and I've just got the poutine jar over here is really great.
Ooh, yum. Yes, but what on
By the way,
Joseph
is saying it was you.
It was me. Okay, great. What? How do you know? How do I just get the blame?
Because I was still going, ooh, was she gone? And you're like,
oh. But where were we at? What rambling part was I at? Something
you were saying
Qui-Gon's Sol's shady.
Qui-Gon would have gone to Anakin, is where he yes. Yeah.
But he would have told the Jedi, because there's nothing he's hiding from, in my opinion. Where Sol, specifically to this exact story, Sol is hiding. So he's like, I gotta run. I can't face them right now.
Yeah. Because he needs to tell May the truth. This truth that he is hidden from everybody else. Because even a couple episodes ago, Vern was like, hey, you should have told me some of this stuff 16 years ago. And he was like, yeah, maybe I should have. And now he says as much to May as this is what I've been thinking about for 16 years. Qui-Gon would have said, I'm doing this and I don't care what you say, but he would have told them as much. Anakin would have not told the council. Well, I think we saw enough Clone Wars episodes where Anakin was just like, I'm just going. I'm just doing my thing. Even the Bad Batch arc, there's that great scene where Obi-Wan comes to try and tell him no. And he's like, oh, you think it's a good idea? Yeah, no, I think so too. Okay, I'm going now. Bye. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Thank you to everybody for the super chats here. And like I said, we'll do a longer version of Ask the SWU in the coming weeks, where we'll get to a lot of these questions that have been submitted on the Discord, because there's some good questions here, and I think they're worth getting into and discussing. But I think it's worth doing with the whole crew, the whole gang, back together, which will hopefully start happening again next week. But with that, we'll begin to wrap things up for this week. Thank you everybody for listening. It has been a great episode, great discussion. We really appreciate everybody tuning in live, and everybody being patient with us and waiting the extra 24 hours.
This music cannot be louder.
I know. I'm
God.
And I genuinely, in the last 2 weeks, I think StreamYard has adjusted what they use as their default volumes, because I had it at where it was the last time, and I could hear it too. It was way too loud. So you know what? Gonna start all that over again so that it's easier to deal with in the edit. But thank you everybody for listening. We will be back in 6 days time. That's right. We'll be back to Thursdays. Thank you everybody for being patient with us and waiting the extra 24 hours as we tried and obviously failed to get the whole crew together. Instead,
we changed the time to get everyone here.
Yeah. We changed it specifically for the Americans.
Yes, we were free.
And the Americans didn't show up, and so we're just here. We are Australia and Canada holding down the fort this week.
Yeah, we're the nice ones.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're the good ones. Those other two. No, but Chris and Ben will be back, and I'm sure you can follow them on social media for all of their thoughts. So I mean, you heard Chris's thoughts on the episode. 10 out of 10, and I'm sure Ben is tweeting and threadsing up a storm all about this episode.
It really is. Yeah.
But Hannah, thank you for being here, for being the one co-host to show up.
That's why you hired me. Consistency. Yeah. No, it was a pleasure. I do have to say, I was going to say this at the top of the show, but I forgot. One of my big things, and I always talk about this, how I listened to you guys for so long before actually knowing you guys and being a part of this. And one of the series I loved listening to you was you and Kieran go through Clone Wars and talking about Clone Wars, and it was just you two, and I was like, oh my god, this is like our version of it. You're and I doing this. We'll do it for some other random show, I'm sure. But it was a pleasure. It was a great time. Love talking all the theories, crackpot theories. But another week down and 2 more to go. Can't wait to see how this show ends.
The Acolyte strikes back. That's what we'll call this episode of just you and me, Hannah. Yeah. Well. Great fun breaking down the episode with you. Everybody, make sure you're checking out the Raeside on YouTube and all the social medias for more quality content, quality Star Wars discussion, and great fun stuff. And every now and again, Hannah paints herself a different color. And dresses up as a character. So tune in to find out.
The amount of face paint that I have that I will never use again is astonishing. Astonishing.
I mean, you're ready for celebration. You just have all of your cosplays.
Ready, You paint me and like 20 other people as well. I have so much paint. It's stupid.
You're just gonna come up with other reasons. Yes, let's come up with other reasons for it. Just day to day.
How many characters are there?
Yeah. Just like matches your mood. Someday you're feeling green, so you just paint yourself up green. And you're like, go out, and people will just be like, oh, she's green today.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes.
It means whatever green means. I don't know what green with envy. If you're feeling envious of somebody.
Yes, Inside Out. I'll cosplay the Inside Out characters.
There we go. Now we're coming up with ideas. So follow the Raeside for more of all that. And follow me at Dominic J25, and I can actually say, subscribe to my Substack because there's actually stuff there again. I posted
I didn't get my email. I always get an email that there's more.
Well, maybe you sent it to junk.
Maybe I
you're like, you know what,
spam.
Yeah, spam. But I have a new post up about the Acolyte, really breaking down the first 4 episodes and discussing themes and all that stuff. So go give that a read. And my next post is 95% done. I just need to finish the editing, and it's not a Star Wars post. It's just about movies, but that'll be hopefully a good read too. So search for Hot Off the Press Substack, or go to dominicgjones.substack.com and read that and subscribe, and I'll continue to publish stuff every now and again when I have the time. So check that out. As always, of course, subscribe to this show. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever you get your shows. And if you're listening or watching on a platform that allows you to leave a review, leave a review. We really appreciate that. Join the Discord between shows to keep the discussion going. Become a channel member, like we said off the top. It's sort of like a tip jar. And check out all of the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld network, like the Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, the Tractor Beam, and eventually more. And follow us on social media at the SWU for all sorts of breaking news. That includes on Threads, but also everywhere on social media at the SWU. You can follow me personally at Dominic J25. Hannah's at the Raeside. I can't remember what Chris's handle is anymore. I think
3PO.
3PO, that's what it was. I was thinking back like 10 years ago for some reason and nearly gave the old one. And Ben is at Ben Hart with no E. But that's it. We will be back, as we said, on Thursday. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Until then, for Ben and Chris, who aren't here, and Hannah, who is here, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.